Though the Boko Haram insurgency began in 2002, the conflict escalated sharply in 2009 after the death of its founder, Mohammed Yusuf. The group launched a violent rebellion targeting civilians, schools, churches, and kidnapping hundreds, including schoolgirls, forcing men into slavery. Now, with over 100,000 fighters and associates having surrendered to the Nigerian military, there are signs of a possible weakening of the group. Yet, little has been written from the frontline perspective until now. Former Chief of Defense Staff General Irabor, retired, who played a central role in Nigeria's fight against Boko Haram, is offering rare insight in his new book, Scars: Nigeria's Journey and the Boko Haram Conundrum. At this public presentation in Abuja, former President Goodluck Jonathan expresses hope that time will reveal deeper truths about the insurgency during his administration. He recalls visiting militant camps during peak Niger Delta unrest.
One of the committees we set up then, the Boko Haram nominated Buhari to lead their team to negotiate with government. So I was feeling that, if they nominated Buhari to represent them and have a discussions with the government committee, then when Buhari took over, it could have been an easy way to negotiate with them, and they would have handed over their guns, but it was still there till today.
Former President Olusegun Obasanjo urges anyone with knowledge of Boko Haram's operations to speak up, warning the group is destroying both Nigeria's present and its future.
When in 2011, I went to Maiduguri to try and find out. After Boko Haram has attacked the UN office here in Abuja, if there's Boko Haram, what was it? Who were there? What are the objectives? What do they want? How can we satisfy them? I found, yes, there was Boko Haram. I found they were not really aiming for anything political, nor anything seriously religious. But in short, they were looking for a better life.
Former National Security Advisor Major General Babagana Munguno, retired, describes the situation as messy and complex.
It is this vulturistic disposition that has refused to allow us to think straight and let go of the past. So much so that over the last 6.5 decades, we've moved from one end of the spectrum to the other extreme end of the spectrum.
Book reviewer and Bishop of Sokoto Matthews Hassan Kuka questions how Nigeria birthed such extremist ideologies. He accused Boko Haram of hiding behind jihad and religious teachings for selfish gains, saying military force alone is not the solution.
We religious leaders and the political actors must also come to terms with the fact that there are boundaries, and if these boundaries are not respected, you can pay the imam, you can pay the marabout, you can pay the bishop, you can pay whatever money you want to. Good governance is not about how much we are dispensing. So we must work towards a point, because Islamism still poses a serious danger.
But the Sultan of Sokoto, Mohammed Saad Abubakar, disagrees with Kuka's interpretation of jihad and Islamism.
Anybody coming outside this to say things that he really doesn't know about is not speaking, is not for Islam. Because Islam abhors extremism. Islam abhors extremism. You cannot be an extremist and then claim to be a good Muslim. So let's learn some of these issues, and then when we're talking about insecurity or security in our great country, we have to be careful in how we say things, how we present them.
Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa says unity, intelligence gathering, and public trust are key to defeating terrorism.
We must therefore ensure that the national security starts with the family, because it's the unit of every community. This can only be achieved through a deliberate, sustained national orientation strategy with focus on educational programs across all strata of learning. It is an awakening reality to either act dutifully for progress or do nothing and turn towards extinction. May that not be our portion.
Former CDS General Alexander Ogumudia, retired, says every Nigerian has a role to play in achieving peace. Beyond enriching Nigeria's military literature, speakers here agree that documenting personal and national experiences is vital for educating future generations and for shaping a more secure, informed society.
Well, for more on the publication of the book and the Boko Haram insecurity challenges in Nigeria, we're now joined by General Lucky Irabor, retired, Nigeria's former Chief of Defense Staff and the author of the book, Scar. Thank you so much for joining us. It's actually Scars.
Yeah.
Yes, it's Scars. Thank you for joining us, and congratulations.
Thank you very
on,
much.
You being able to pen down your experiences as far as, insecurity in Nigeria is concerned, and of course the experience with Boko Haram. Now let's pivot with what former President Goodluck Jonathan said in his intervention, that he actually believed that President Buhari would be able to defeat Boko Haram. From your point of view, I mean, you were CDS under the former president, the late former president. Why was it difficult for an ex-general who many believed would be able to tackle Boko Haram to a standstill? Why was it difficult, for him to defeat Boko Haram?
Well, Ngozi, thank you very much for that question. And let me, before I come to my perspective as to the answer to your question, let me appreciate the management of Arise TV for inviting me, and as well as also covering the unveiling of the book earlier today. Yes, it would have been, a good thing to see that the scourge of Boko Haram was extinguished during the presidency of late President Muhammadu Buhari. But incidentally, you must understand that conflicts of this nature, they are not necessarily what you could calculate within the chessboard. There are intricacies, which of course is part of what the book also deals with, that you cannot easily see from the surface. It is not just because you are a military strategist that every problem that has some violence, by way of, manifesting from such a challenge can easily be, settled, or if you like, dealt with military precision. So this is the reason why I believed, arising from the experiences that I've had, to say that the public and of course the other stakeholders must understand the nuances of Boko Haram challenge, as well as other insecurity within the country. And I'm glad that the conversation that we had is just the beginning. And my intent in putting together this book is to have a national conversation to begin to address issues of insecurity across the country. Boko Haram is only a connecting point to making the case that the dastardly manifestations of Boko Haram is only a pointer to the fact that we need to do something very urgently with the underlying issues of insecurity in Nigeria.
Okay. Retired but certainly not tired. Congratulations. 330-page, 14 chapters. Unfortunately, I've not had a copy, so I haven't read the book. But from the events today, there was a fundamental question across the room, which is, why are we still battling insurgency, particularly Boko Haram, after many years, 15 years,
Over 15
thereabouts
years.
or so. You were theater commander, Operation Lafayette Dole.
Yeah.
I remember under your watch, we recorded successes that were reported, including the capture of Alagano, the clearance of the Sambisa forest, the arrest of Boko Haram commanders that were eliminated. So there was so much under your watch, and we thank you for your service to the nation. But then that question, why is the group still operating? When you hear former President Jonathan say their weapons were sophisticated, they still operate. Former President Obasanjo says it doesn't make any sense that they are still here. And as someone who fought from the front lines, can you tell Nigerians tonight, why is Boko Haram still effective?
Thank you. Adesua, thank you for that question. Incidentally, there is a sub, team in the book, why Boko Haram activities still persist. So in the book, I laid out a good number of reasons why it does persist. But beyond that, where I started from has to do with, the variegated, factors that are linked to insecurity, or if you like, drivers of insecurity, and sometimes drivers of extremist behaviors. And to that extent, Boko Haram, more or less, takes advantage of many of those, factors, which many people, even within the society, have contributed in one way or the other. And it bears repetition. I mean, if I could make mention of a few. First is that what some politicians may not realize that they're doing, motivating those extremist groups, is by the kind of comments we make. I mean, you find that, a political administration, who perhaps might have, if you like, a different view on an issue than an opposing, politician from another divide could, in a view, with the intention perhaps to, underscore the if you like, underperformance of such a politician, will begin to use, insecurity issues as a platform for debate, to think that because you are a leader today, that you have every right or you have the wherewithal to address an issue, believing that if he is in charge, that he'll be able to address it. Not knowing that it's only he who wears the shoes that actually know where it pinches. Until you begin to wear the shoe, then what you thought you knew, you end up realizing that you don't know. So that is a key part. And then secondly, there were all those, there's no doubt that under governance, if you like, poor governance has been at the root of many of our problems. So you find that in many communities where there is no semblance of governance presence, that the criminals become, the alternative. And so they end up, because they have been able to create franchises around those villages. So who they see on ground are the criminals. So the villagers begin to, give them all manner of support. There are also those who may be affluent within the society who also give them, some support. Of course, let's not also forget that there are some external actors who, for whatever reason, also, want to give one form of support or the other to the criminal. So there are a good number of reasons, many of which I've also itemized in the book. And so when the statement is made, why was it difficult for the past administration, or if you like, the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, by the way, that are a greater part of my service as CDS, I served under, why it was impossible. It is because it goes beyond just using military might. Right. And so that's why the book that I've put together is actually, talking about a paradigm shift in terms of how we should approach it, how we should begin to look at other elements of state power to utilize. So that the military power, if you like, this hard power element, which has, been the priority over these years, we must begin to pivot to, other lines of operation. Even though the military line still remains there, but it shouldn't be the dominant, line that we should focus on. But it's necessary for me to also add that what I see, and I was very clear in the book. What I see is that the government, past and present, has not seen the need to declare war with the necessary legal instruments against Boko Haram and all forms of insecurity across the country.
How do you mean?
Yes, yeah. So this is the issue. So there is no instrument, there is no declaration from either the National Assembly, something backed by the National Assembly, that says today that we're in a state of war. There's none. When you are in a state of war, then of course some elements, some parts of the Constitution will be, suspended to be able to give greater effect for the management of the war effort, so that all the elements of state power will be deployed to ensure that issues are addressed. This is clearly lacking within our environment. And so, believing that very soon we would address the issues, it keeps lingering. Another thing is that the campaign plan itself has been seen to be a military activity without actually knowing that it's a political activity. It is the political strategic leadership that must own the campaign plan itself. So you find that each time it is military men that you invite here to come to begin to explain about the war. No, it is the state that is in a state of war, not the military. Military is only an element. It's a policy implementation tool, an element of state to implement policies of state. So it is not the military that explains why it is deployed. It is not the military that explains the strategy, like the operational, outcomes of whatever engagement it is undertaken on behalf of the state. So this is the understanding which we don't seem to have amongst the political class, which my book seeks to bring that awareness to them, that will begin to have a conversation to know how wars are fought, how you develop operational plans, and how operational plans are executed. And I thought that this is a right time for us to get to.
But there have been measures. General, you remember Operation Safe Corridor too well.
Correct.
That was an instrument by the Nigerian government at that time, we're told, to help de-radicalize, reintegrate these people, and to ensure it was like a carrot and stick approach.
Correct.
That's what we were told. But looking back now, it doesn't sound like that was, a good decision to make. But in your professional assessment, what would you say about Operation Safe Corridor?
Fine. So let me distill this discussion beyond. Operation Safe Corridor, by the way, is a part of the strategy that I will support today, and I'm going to support even tomorrow. Let's get that clear. But then that it was agreed upon to do does not imply that should suffice for the entire process. It's only a part and parcel of a line of operation, which is that let us give room for the criminal elements to surrender and take the approach of DDR, disarmament, demobilization, disarmament, and resettlement. And then, of course, for them to, in the process of de-radicalization, train them to begin to, get a skill, and then later on get reintegrated into the society. But the question to ask is not whether there was Operation Safe Corridor. You must also ask what what has been deployed in terms of activating the processes that are involved in Operation Safe Corridor. So this is what must be understood. In any case, it was crafted by the military. It was not crafted by the political class. Right. And so when people talk about, there was a question today which the former president also asked perhaps I think he was one who asked whether there is a war room I think it was a book reviewer, whether there's a war room at the villa. It's not in my understanding that it's not necessarily that it must be in the villa, but that is there a place where there is a meeting of minds between the military strategic and the political strategic, where detailed, conversation, if like interrogation of tactics, procedure, techniques, tactics, techniques,
so
and
did
procedures.
Did you have such a war room? Because based on what you said, that the military is only a tool in the hands of the political class to execute the war against insecurity. Well, that knowledge seemed to have been missing, where the military was, right front and center of the war against, insurgency and insecurity in Nigeria. That point you made, very, very important point.
Correct.
But when you listen to all the people who contributed from the Sultan of Sokoto, who said, look, jihad is about striving and not Islamism. You had Hassan Kuka who said, look, guns alone can't defeat Boko Haram.
Correct.
There's a need for soft power.
Correct.
And then you also had, Tinubu himself who says, look, it's a whole of society approach to defeating insecurity. So all of this, when you aggregate all of these points, do they come together in actually achieving success against, insurgency and those who take up arms against society?
Okay, now let's look at it this way. They do in part, but what I'm driving at is that for a war or a challenge of this magnitude, because right now not only is Boko Haram a monster,
right?
Boko Haram, like I said, was only a team to bringing out the issues of insecurity in Nigeria into focus.
Right.
So in this context, with this discussion now, when I say Boko Haram, I'm actually talking about the totality of insecurity in Nigeria.
Okay. Right.
Now, so the Boko Haram as we have it today is a monster for several reasons. Now, there are issues that have to do with livelihood of persons, or if you like, of citizens being affected, and those, not having means of economic, sustaining, and several others. Now, the approach which this book and many of the views that have been canvassed seeks is this: that peace and security is an end. But the means to that end has various elements, including, on one hand, military line, which is just only an infinitesimal aspect. Governance is only a broad term. What do we mean by governance? That those who are led have, some sense of, some feeling of inclusiveness in policy decision. That those who are being governed also understand that they are a part and parcel of governance. That when we say dividends of democracy, that roads, when there are access to, talking about roads, communication generally, through roads and other means, and it's part, and that policing is also taken such that the citizens are able to see that they are seeing value for what policing infrastructure does in their life. But today it doesn't appear that there's a feeling. When I say today, I'm not just talking about, I'm talking about over the years, that there has been an erosion of the what I could call the trust of the citizen towards issues of policing in our nation. And so where economic policies ought to contribute to security or feeling of security, and among several other issues, I'm saying that we are not seeing it from that point of view. So we do not, many people think that when you are talking about road construction, or if you like, means that we create jobs for people, do not think that that's a contributor to security of persons, or if you like, security of the nation.
It seems distant to them.
It seems very distant to them. So what I'm saying is that And that's what I mean by government taking ownership of the campaign plan. To see every policy of government as a contributing factor to the overall, security of the country.
Re-echoing what former President Olusegun Obasanjo said, that Boko Haram is driven by poverty and not politics or religion, but the search for a better life. Thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations once again on your book, Scars, Nigeria's Journey and the Boko Haram Conundrum. A conundrum indeed. Former Chief of Defense Staff, the 17th CDS of Nigeria, General Leo Irabor, retired. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.